is December 10th, 2024. My apologies, already opened up my can, but whoosh, for those that know. So there's some concerning reports that are starting to come out now of what's going on in Syria. I generally do this. I start my day and do my life stuff, and then around 10 a.m. after things clear up, I get my first little breaks and things. At that point, I start to look at what is going on in the world. And yeah, it was normal old stuff. Post-Syria, Assad this, Israel that, America this, Turkey that, Russia this, Ukraine that kind of stuff. But this evening, as I picked it up again and started to look through it, it became evident that now there's a lot of reports of some crazy crap going on in Syria. Kind of stuff that will turn your stomach, to say the least. I, of course, am not going to detail it in graphic reporting, but just know that there's we are entering into a whole nother can of problem, a whole nother can of worms in this thing that's going on with Syria now. And say what you will about Assad, there was at least different areas for different groups, like the Alawites and the Druze and the Shias and the Sunnis and all the other subsects from there. But now HTS is controlling things, and well, let's just say they're the remnants of some pretty nasty stuff. And now their true colors are really starting to come out. So I'm going to go through it. There's actually a good amount here, but we are entering into new things. There's also a lot of drama going on over in Korea right now with this martial law, whatever the heck that was last week. Yeah, so we'll get towards that towards the end. But there's a whole bunch of problems starting to present itself in Syria, and it's all over the place. So I guess we'll get started. Finally on time again, or at least close to it. My apologies for being a little bit later the last few days, but we've been doing a lot. Just one of those times a year where you've got a lot going on, and anything that throws it off is just too tough to deal with, but you still got to deal with it. So anyway, Crisis Report, December 10th, 2024. We are going to get started right here, right now. Hit that like button, do the subscribe thing if you're new here, darken out the bell. Tell people about what's going on. We're never going to get the algorithmic love. But I can tell you what, if you're listening to me, you're going to know a lot more than a lot of other people. And you're also going to be knowing about it a heck of a lot sooner than everybody else. So, pride myself at that. Most comprehensive news on YouTube. Here we go. Trump called Justin Trudeau a governor and referred to Canada as a state. This is funny and all that, but to be honest with you folks, I kind of wish that we'd stay on point here. Trudeau is a POS. I don't like him by any stretch of the imagination, but we're going to need everybody in our corner and doing the things. There's a time for that kind of stuff, but then there's a time to just get down to business. So, Mr. Trump, I appreciate it. It was a very funny soundbite, but let's get old Justin and his buddies on board and doing what they need to do by going with your usual hardline kind of way. So Israel military has rejected reports that tanks are advancing towards Damascus. I mean, you ask people on the Syrian side, and yeah, they're coming in. Yes, the Israelis are just creating a buffer zone, fog of war. Brazilian President Lula is in intensive care after brain surgery. He is fine and recovering. No comment. War Monitor says Israel has conducted 300 strikes on Syria since Assad's fall. Eric Trump says, I'm confident that Bitcoin is going to hit $1 million. A wind-fanned wildfire quickly spread early on Tuesday in Malibu, where many Hollywood elites reside in the western U.S. state of California, threatening buildings and prompting evacuations, according to local officials. Israel orders military to create weapons-free zones in southern Syria. Macron aims for a new prime minister within 48 hours. Party chiefs are going to be having to work on that. U.S. sanctions Chinese cybersecurity firm for malicious activities. Arctic is now emitting more carbon than it absorbs, according to United States agencies. Putin's mentor, Alexander Dugin, said Syria was a trap for Erdogan. He has made strategic mistake. He has betrayed Russia. He had betrayed Iran. He is doomed. Now the end of Kemal's Turkey has begun. We have supported you until now. From now on, you will repent. Russia gets a lot of products from Turkey. So does Israel. Dugin is a political thinker, and he's definitely got the ear of Putin. Whether this is all just conjecture and bluster, I don't know. But I know that this has been very interesting developments for the Russians and the Turkish, who at times have been close. Syria, massive wave of Israeli airstrikes on Syrian army weapons storage in Latakia. About 250 military targets were hit: air bases, helicopters, planes, missiles, ammunition warehouses, as well as facilities for the Syrian Navy, whatever the heck's left of that, part of Latakia. Israeli military equipment was spotted 20 kilometers from the capital of Syria in Damascus. Syria, various units of the Israeli army, the IDF, that are present in the morning during the ground invasion into Syrian territory. The 101st or 5101st Shell Dog Ranger Unit, 210th Infantry Division Bashan. I think he messed up. I think that's supposed to be the 101st, but maybe I'm wrong. 810th Mountain Brigade, 474th Golan Territorial Brigade. Reuters reported that the Israeli army is just 10 kilometers away from the Syrian capital of Damascus, located in Katana. Huge deployment of China's PLA assets around Taiwan this morning, with 47 warplanes and 12 warships. 16 PLA aircraft crossed into the aids from the SW or southwestern direction. Taiwan Intel said PLA simulated strikes on foreign warships, practiced repelling attacks on military and civilian aircraft as part of the blockade exercises to get control of the entire first island chain from Japan through Taiwan to the Philippines and Borneo, Indonesia. In Ukraine, the Russian armed forces entered the territory of the Sumy region. Belarus, President Lukashenko confirms that Belarus already has nuclear weapons, and he thought that he brought that into context with plans from Russia to deploy the Oreshnik missile system in Belarus. Lukashenko also said that Moscow is transferring only the Oreshnik missile to Minsk. The launcher will be a Belarusian production. Iran, Alireza Zakani, mayor of Tehran, says we are going through a very dangerous situation. If we don't pay attention to its dimensions, we will lose for hundreds of years. Gaza, Beirut, Damascus, and then who? Russia, sufficient amount of Oreshnik SRBM ICBM missiles actually eliminates the need to use nuclear weapons, according to Putin. Turkish TV is talking about a future map of Turkey's expansion for 2025, which includes parts of Armenia, Georgia, Greece, Bulgaria, Cyprus, northern parts of Iraq, and Syria. The U.S. conducted its first successful test interception of a medium-range ballistic missile off the coast of Guam, western Pacific Ocean, Pentagon has reported. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu announced the complete occupation of the Syrian Golan Heights by the Israeli army. The Golan Heights have become Israeli forever. We supported the opposition and treated their wounds 13 years ago. So now they get the wonderful prize of fully owning the Golan Heights. Romania. NATO is building a mega base right on the Ukrainian border to defend the eastern flank if Russia gets more ground in Ukraine. Israeli tanks have advanced beyond the buffer zone and are stationed near the town of Katana, southern Syria. Lebanese TV channel Al Mayadeen has reported Katana is located 21 kilometers from the Syrian capital of Damascus. Russian intelligence director Narishkin. Russia is close to achieving the goals set by the special military operation, Ukraine. Ukrainian armed forces are on the verge of collapse. Washington did not express any opposition to Israel's incursion into Syria when informed, Israeli sources said. Syrian revolutionary leader Ahmed al-Sharah or al-Jalani, we will not hesitate to hold accountable the criminals, murderers, security, and army officers involved in torturing the Syrian people. We will pursue war criminals and demand them from the countries to which they fled so they may receive their just punishment. Seems like the punishing has already gotten started. Chinese restrictions on drone components could really hurt Ukraine's war effort. China is expected to set tighter restrictions on the exports of drone parts as soon as January. Many producers of UAVs in Ukraine rely on Chinese parts to make the cheap and effective weapons that have helped defend or helped define the against the with war with Russia, whatever they're saying, help define the against with Russia. So I don't know what he's trying to say there, but I think we get the gist of it. South Korean parliament has passed a bill to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate President Yoon Suk Yeol's treason charge. Israel destroyed aircraft, warships, strategic installations in Syria to prevent the opposition from reaching them. Israeli Army radio has reported this was reportedly the largest air operation Israel has carried out in its history. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says Bashar al-Assad's resignation from presidency was his personal decision. Belarusian President Lukashenko says Oreshnik missiles will now be deployed in Belarus. Missiles will be supplied free of charge by Russia in the second half of 2025. Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs says we condemn Israel's violation of the 1974 Separation of Forces Agreement and its entry into the separation zone between Israel and Syria and its advancements into Syrian territory. In this sensitive period when the Syrian people have been longing for peace and stability for years, Israel is once again displaying its occupation mentality. Erdogan also says we will not allow anyone to divide Syrian lands and turn them into conflict zones again. And he says anyone who tries to attack Syria will find the Syrian people against them, and we will stand by the Syrian people in their fight. Prime Minister of the Syrian Salvation Government, Mohammed al-Bashir, says, we have been assigned by the General Command to run the affairs of the Syrian government until the first of the third of the month of next year. Chad is the fourth country in Africa France pulled its forces from after Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Departure from Chad marks the end of decades of French military presence in the Sahel region. It seems like the French colonial project in Africa is faltering. Israeli Defense Minister Katz says, I have ordered the army to establish a defensive zone free of weapons and terrorist threats on the borders. We destroyed the Syrian Navy yesterday. I warn the leaders in Syria, whoever follows in Assad's footsteps will end up like him. Department of Political Affairs of the new Syrian government. We held a meeting with the ambassadors of Iraq, Bahrain, Oman, Egypt, UAE, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Italy. Meeting was positive, and the ambassadors promised high-level coordination with the new government. Qatar will open its embassy in Damascus in a few days. International airport will be activated in a few days, and today the cleaning and maintenance work has started. Satellite imagery shows that the Russian naval ships have left Moscow's base in Tartus on Syria's coast. Some ships have dropped anchor offshore following the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. IDF destroyed between 70 and 80% of the military capabilities of the Assad regime, Israeli Army radio reported. Meet the Press exclusive. Trump's interview averaged 2.9 million viewers on Sunday, its largest total viewer audience in over a year. NBC says it was the number one Sunday public affairs show across the board. U.S. disperses $20 billion to Ukraine in a loan backed by profits from Russian assets. I'm sure they'll be totally happy with that. We got more on that one later. Biden says Trump's economic plan is going to be a disaster. Okay. Reports say Mitch McConnell fell following Senate GOP's lunch. He had a cut on his face getting medical treatment. So, yeah. Hundreds of deadly virus samples are missing from a lab in Australia. Great. I will have more on that one, but I mean, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Breaking news, suspect in the United Healthcare CEO killing was denied bail and opted to fight extradition to New York, starting a process that could take weeks. So, this story is your typical Hollywood, everybody looks at it. I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of different theories, and it doesn't surprise me that this is going on. Taiwan says it detected 53 Chinese military aircraft, 19 ships near the island. Janet Yellen has personally overseen $16.7 trillion, or 46% of all the debt increase in the history of the United States. But she's sorry. She says, I am concerned about fiscal sustainability, and I'm sorry we haven't made more progress. I believe the deficit needs to be brought down. U.S. debt rose by $8.2 trillion while Yellen was Fed chair or vice chair, and by $8.5 million while she was Treasury Secretary. Reports on social media claim that at least 40 Israeli airstrikes happened over the past hour against sites of the now collapsed Syrian Arab army in the capital of Damascus and the Rif Dimashq governorate. It happens to the Jewish state to seek to destroy any military capability of the former Ba'athist regime from falling into the hands of the newly established HTS-leaning transitional government. And HTS leader Giuliani quote, "We will not hesitate to hold accountable the criminals, murderers, security, and army officers involved in torturing the Syrian people. We will pursue war criminals and demand them from the countries to which they fled so that they may receive their just punishment." So, Turkmen terrorists and Turkey-led SNA entered a hospital in Manbij and killed Syrian soldiers that were receiving treatment there. This is when all the fun starts today. Israeli Army radio citing a security source: "We destroyed all aircraft, warships, strategic facilities in Syria to prevent the Syrian opposition from reaching it." IDF, or Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz, to the transitional government of Syria: "I have ordered the army to establish a defensive zone free of weapons and terrorist threats on the borders. We destroyed the Syrian Navy yesterday. I warn the leaders in Syria, whoever follows in Assad's footsteps will end up like him." President Yoon sent members of the 707th Special Mission Group to arrest liberal government officials during the coup in North Korea's uniform. If this operation was to fail, they were to be caught by ROK troops and kill both the liberal leaders and the disguised special forces units. This was revealed today during the NA's Defense Committee meeting, during which generals were questioned. Israeli Army radio: "Army is still operating only in the buffer zone, which is about 30 kilometers from Damascus. Turkey has condemned the Israeli invasion of Syria, and Turkish President Erdogan is calling to the AFP, says Turkey will stand with Syrian people in every way possible, politically, economically, militarily, diplomatically, anyway. Syria belongs to the Syrians." Journalist Morella Abu Shanab, a Christian from Damascus, says she was questioned for the first time in her life whether she is Alawite Christian, Druze, or Shia. Central Damascus by HTS members. Wouldn't that be great? Go anywhere and they're like, "Hey, Catholic? Are you Presbyterian? Are you non-denominational? What style? What flavor?" MTS militants looted the treasury and donation box of the Syrian Orthodox Church in St. George in Damascus and disrupted the Mass as the priest was ordered to go home. Over the past 2 days, Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, or SNA, renewed their efforts to seize Manbij after having launched a major offensive against the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, in northern areas of the AANES. During the past days, footage emerged showing armed clashes inside urban areas of the countryside of Manbij between the Turkish-backed and the U.S.-backed rebel groups. Armed forces, as expected, provided 5 support and intelligence gathering for the SNA. Manbij area is known, while being majority Sunni Arab, for being the home for thousands of Kurdish, Turkmen, Circassian, and Chechen minorities. Turkish media reported that as part of the Operation Dawn of Freedom, fighters from the SNA continued its efforts in the region, detecting and destroying mines and booby traps left by the YPJ PKK terrorists. Kurdish media reported the fighters of the United Military Council forces were able to carry on several air operations against the Turkish occupation army and its mercenaries. According to FDD, Turkish warplanes carried out a limited air campaign with 3 airstrikes hitting near the Kara Kujak Bridge, a critical link between the eastern and western banks of the Euphrates. In a separate incident, a Turkish drone strike on a here in the SDF controlled village of al-Mustariha in northern Raqqa killed 11 civilians from the same family, including 6 children. Ugh. As Turkish-backed forces entered the region, it was reported that units from the Manbij Military Council, as part of the SDF, conducted drone strikes on troop gatherings established, and Arab media reported that on December 9th, sleeper cells under loyalty of SNA started sabotaging actions behind SDF defensive lines. In the southern part of Daraa, Syria, Israeli forces have entered the UNDOF buffer zone near Maraba. Israeli soldiers have warned residents of border villages and to stay away from the border areas. Consequently, farmers have been shelled by Israeli while moving towards their fields. United States reports 2.5 million new Rona infections in 1 week. Currently, 134 Americans is infected. Transmission is currently higher than it was in 43.5% of the Rona. And, yep, there's your Rona update. Ukrainian Zelensky. 10 to 12 additional Patriot systems would allow Ukraine to fully protect its airspace and make war for Putin's meaningless. Putin meaningless. The system can be financed with frozen Russian assets. Syria's new government announced plans to adopt a free market model, an attractive investment, and rebuild 13 years of war, according to departure of decades of state control. UN National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says Ankara has a right to defend their citizens and their territory against terror activities or attacks, and they're an important NATO ally. We have interests, as I said, in the going after ISIS, and that means partnering with the Syrian Democratic Forces, and that will continue. And where those two goals overlap or potentially conflict, we will have the appropriate conversations with the Turks and with also the outcomes that can be achieved. United States State Department, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, uses right words, but we will judge it by its actions. Spokesperson for the Syrian Department of Political Affairs, a constitutional committee will be formed to review and amend the previous constitution. We will not accept the division of Syria or any part being made outside Damascus control. U.S. will provide Ukraine with a $20 billion loan paid for by the proceeds from frozen Russian central bank assets. I'm sure the Russians are absolutely ecstatic about that. 323 vials of a live deadly virus have gone missing. Wonderful. From Australian biolab. There's nothing to suggest that these have been taken from the laboratory or been weaponized, said with a sweat-laden chuckle. Viruses, including Hendra virus, Lysovirus, and hantavirus, went missing in 2021 in a serious breach of the biosecurity protocols, which was discovered in August of 2023, but is just now being publicly reported. New leader, al-Jilani, refuses to confront the Israeli army, which is 19 kilometers from Damascus, which strongly indicates that he is possibly using all this. But, Israel will get a new controlled and buffer zone inside Syria for helping the HTS taking down Assad. Syria is becoming Libya on steroids. Right this a week ago, Netanyahu's approval of a ceasefire with Hezbollah showed that another major action was brewing in the background in Syria. Erdogan and Netanyahu have managed to push Assad from power with their terrorist minions, but now it is coming to light what exactly was agreed upon. Syria will be divided into the territories, one controlled by the HTS, one by the U.S.-backed Kurds, and one by Israel as a buffer zone. Israeli army is now advancing and the HTS is retreating and unwilling to try to stop them. Will this be sustainable? I don't know. Of course not. Turkey's main goal is to destroy the Kurds and will now practically have their own state. The conflicts between all of these groups will figure up even more. HTS will lose control from other smaller religious groups. It will be a real mess. Biggest beneficiary of this is Israel. And Israel will rule the Middle East now with because of the lack of morality in Islamic leaders. They sell themselves for a sack of potatoes. Mass execution across Syria from Erdogan-backed HTS terror group. Public executions in Syria. Huge crowds gather to watch HTS terrorist group execute former Syrian army officials in Hama, Syria. HTS terror parade with ISIS flags in Latakia after entering the city. While there are mass executions now across Syria, the Biden administration is considering removing main Syrian terrorist group, HTS, from terrorism list, according to NBC. Horrific videos of ISIS and Al-Qaeda rebranded as HTS carry executions in Syria. There are people, these animals, the world needs to stop them. Excuse me. U.S. Department of State has announced visa restrictions on 17 Russian officials and Russia-appointed proxy authorities for undermining Ukraine's sovereignty. Mass executions and cleansing of ethnic and religious minorities by HTS and SNA, TER in Syria have started. We will share here some of these things. Watch HTS terrorists with ISIS patches executes Alawites in Latakia. Wonderful. Men in the video shout Allah Akbar. And there are Nusayrists or Alawites. These pigs, they basically are getting... it's going to get worse. An extremist group calling itself Magawir al-Sham entered religious minority villages in Hom's countryside and cleansed from the Alawites. In the video, the individual is heard saying, Allah Akbar Magawir al-Sham. The Nusayri village has been cleaned. HTS desecrated the grave of Hafez al-Assad in Kardasha, Latakia Governorate. Stepped on his coffin. HTS is allegedly planning on exhuming the body of Hafez and burying it somewhere unknown or burning it because he was a disbeliever. Yemen's Ansar Allah announced that they are targeting 3 American supply ships shortly after their departure from the port of Djibouti, along with 2 U.S. Navy destroyers, escorting them in the Gulf of Aden using missiles and drones. IRGC Deputy Commander of the Sarala HQ. Tomorrow, Iran's leader Imam Khomeini will undoubtedly clarify the strength of the resistance nexus through his insightful remarks. He will outline the Islamic Republic's roadmap for the future in the region. Iranian media is really emphasizing the tomorrow's speech by Imam Khomeini, and it will contain something very important. More to that, more so on that than usual. What this means, I don't know. Netanyahu issues a warning to HTS if the new government in Syria allows Iran to invade Syria and to transfer weapons to Hezbollah in Lebanon, the government will have to pay a very high price. 48 hours, the IDF struck most of the strategic weapons stockpiles in Syria to prevent them from falling into the hands of terrorist elements. Breakdown is naval operations. Israel naval ships struck 2 Syrian Navy facilities simultaneously, Al-Baida port and the Latakia port, where 15 Syrian naval vessels were blocked. Naval targets, dozens of the sea-to-sea missiles, ranges of 80 to 190 kilometers, were destroyed. Each missile carried significant explosive payloads, posing threats to civilian and military maritime vessels in the area. Air Force operations. Manned aircraft flew hundreds of hours over Syrian airspace, 350 plus aerial strikes. Targets struck a wide range of targets, including anti-aircraft batteries, Syrian Air Force airfields, and dozens of weapons production sites in Damascus, Homs, Tartus, Latakia, and Palmyra. Assets neutralized. Numerous strategic assets, including Scud missiles. Wow. Cruise missiles, surface-to-sea, surface-to-air, and surface-to-surface missiles, UAVs, fighter jets, attack helicopters, radars, tanks, hangars, and more. Ground operations, the IDF conducted airstrikes on 130 assets in Syria, including weapons depots, military structures, launchers, and firing positions. And the United States Capitol Police have arrested a man after an allegedly assault on Representative Nancy Mace inside the Rayburn House office building. I was physically accosted at the Capitol tonight by a pro-trans man. Police are searching the office of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. And Russia, South Korea's former defense minister, Kim, reportedly used underwear to commit suicide at detention center. Wow. Death by underwear. Okay. Friends, that is your crisis report for December 10th, 2024. Hit that like button, do the subscribe thing, darken out the bell, get the notifications, join me on Subscribe, start on Locals, and come on and be a member. $2 a month, like Bad Bobber and the other friends. Great way to get the inside before it happens. We're going to have a thing in the morning-ish. Excuse me. Nope. That's wrong. We're going to do that again. Yep. I think we are going to cut that off. That was going to be PrepperNow. So anyway, friends, God bless. Thanks for being here. You know what to do. Darken out the bell. Get all the notifications. And we're going to go to bed and get a good night's sleep because we need it. And we will see you on the next one. We out.